Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of the Whole Health with Rob Carney podcast. On this episode, my friend Anastasia Gerali is back. We had a great conversation about 8 or 9 months ago, maybe 10 months ago. It's been a little bit. And so if you haven't checked that episode out, I will put the link to that conversation in the description box here in the show notes. But Anastasia is a rapid abundance activator and international healer. She's on a mission to raise the wealth consciousness of the spiritually awakened so they can create a bigger impact in their lives and their world. Anastasia, welcome back.
Thank you for having me, Rob.
Well, it's great to have you back. And after our last conversation, I received some great feedback from that. A lot of people had some aha moments from our last conversation. But I know a lot has changed in the past 10 or so months since we last chatted. So I'd love to just start by a quick update of what's the latest in your world, what you got going on, then we'll dive into our topic of money consciousness today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I mean, yeah, it's pretty much in the title, rapid abundance. So things happen really quickly in my world. I'm all about speed. I'm all about creating momentum. So yeah, I mean, right now I'm on a mission to raise the wealth consciousness of the healers, the teachers, the people that have a bigger vision for the contribution that they want to make in the world. In order for us to do that, of course, we need resources, right? Because resources allow us to be bigger, to be better, to do more of the good that we want to do, right? And in that conversation, of course, money comes up, always, always, always. And even as a healer, a lot of people come to me and when I ask them, lay it on the table, what do you want to look at? Money block is probably the number one topic that everybody wants to heal and shift. And then number two would probably be a love block. So money blocks and love blocks are on the forefront of everybody's mind.
I love it. Well, I want to dive into money blocks and love blocks, but before we dive into that, you were recently featured in a pretty cool article. Love to have you share what that's about, because that's kind of a big deal.
It is kind of a big deal. So I was featured in the NYC Journal as the top 30 life coaches to watch out for in 2021. So I thought it was a joke. When I first got contacted, I was like, yeah, sure. Very casually kind of like sent my information over, but I didn't realize it was a real thing. So that was awesome. And I have a few other features that are coming up as well, which I didn't take seriously either. So I'm very curious to see how those pan out.
Well, I was very excited. I saw you share that post and I was cheering you on from the virtual sideline. So I was excited to see that. And it's really cool to see people doing great work that you're doing and getting recognized for it. And sometimes it feels like there's so many people out there. It's like, how is somebody going to find little old me? And then seeing you get featured on that made my day that day. So that was really cool to see.
Exactly. Evidence of what's available for everybody else, right?
Absolutely. And that's, it comes down to, it's so easy to get caught up in the competition mindset, but we're collaborating. And it's like you said, it's cool to see, hey, if Anastasia can do this, it almost gives me and other people permission, like, oh, if she can do it, I can do it too, because I know her. And it's more personal, not just some random person on the internet. And I think it's really cool to see people in our community rising up and getting recognized.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even the way that you and I met, it was through a collaboration, right? It was just, oh, we're liking each other's posts. We have these kind of like values and ethics in common. Let's have a call and see where it goes. And I love the power of the internet because it really has collapsed all time, distance, and space between us. It is no longer an excuse that I don't know people. You can know people on the other side of the world without ever physically knowing them. So it's fantastic that we're so fortunate to have been born in the day and age that we've been born in. With its challenges, also comes many pros as well.
Totally. Yeah, and I think it's important to know, like you said there, is that sometimes we can feel alone in this world, and sometimes we feel like, we're the black sheep of the world, but that may be true in your immediate environment. But like you mentioned, for everybody listening, Anastasia's over on the other side of the pond. She's in Europe. So I'm over here in the United States. She's over in Europe. And so we got two different countries across a big ocean, and we still are able to communicate and collaborate on a regular basis. So that kind of leads into the idea of people can create these blocks in their mind of saying, I don't know anybody, I can't make money, I'm not lovable. Whatever these belief systems are, we can create these walls in front of us. So I'd love to dive into the idea of the money block, the love block, and how these may actually be somewhat related.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Rob. Yeah, so in the work that I do, like 98% of the time when someone comes to me for a money block, when we go into a session, what is often revealed is that, and this is something that I truly believe in, when you zoom out far enough, you can see a connection in everything. There is always order in chaos, right? The chaos theory. So when we zoom out and we take a look at what's keeping someone blocked from being financially abundant, quite often that has to do with being blocked to giving and receiving. And giving and receiving is essential in both money and love when we're talking about multiplying and amplifying it. Of course, it's something that we can give to ourselves. We can give love to ourselves. We can generate an income for ourselves, but that needs to circulate in order for that energy to grow and in order for it to multiply. So when someone, I've kind of found there to be three categories of people when they're talking about these specific blocks. The first category is someone who is, who carries a love block. So maybe financially, professionally, they're doing really, really well and they're thriving in their career and they're financially well off, but they don't have a relationship or they can't keep a steady relationship. The second school is the person that has overinvested in their love relationships, but sacrifice their career or their ability to create an income and therefore created this sort of codependent relationship with a provider, a partner who financially also provides for them as well. And then the third school, which seems to be more and more common these days, it's like, yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit that, nothing really growing and thriving the way that I would want it. So kind of both professionally, financially, and personally in relationships, not really seeing the growth and the fruition that they want.
Yeah, and I love breaking it down that way. And obviously, like you mentioned, we can kind of see how many of these things may work together. But how do you work with a client or just give advice to somebody to say, hey, let's use the money block as an example. What are some steps somebody can utilize to break down that money block and open the floodgates for the abundance to come in?
Thank you. What a great question. I mean, if it really was just like one thing, I would write a book and I'd sell like a billion books. I'd be like, take this away, read that chapter, your life will change. It really is a process, just as anything is a process. When we're talking about growth, we need to go through some growing pains, right? And I call them kind of growth spurts. So when someone is, of a higher conscious, someone who has invested in their personal development, they can start to become a lot more self-aware, if you will, as to what role they have perhaps in this money block. Because if we're not self-aware and we don't kind of recognize that everything is a manifestation which we've created for ourselves, our reality, our bank accounts, our relationships, everything has been created by us. And we're kind of creating on autopilot, then you're going to be kind of like chasing your tail versus really getting to the core of what is it unconsciously that I carry within me that doesn't want ease and flow in this particular field or this particular area of my life. What is it in my past? And that very much, and this is something I 100% believe in, and this is the work that I do, we're always working on a subconscious level, because all these unconscious desires for struggle and scarcity and lack, they are stored in your unconscious, because consciously, who wants to struggle? Consciously, who wants to not have money in their life? I mean, we live in the real world. We understand that it's a currency that allows us freedom and gives us options. So if you are on paper doing everything that you can, but in reality your bank account doesn't reflect that, or your list of opportunities doesn't reflect that, then that means that there's an unconscious desire to be without. And for me personally, You need to give yourself permission to be supported in this exploration, because you cannot see your own blind spots. You're not going to be able to be objective enough to identify the root cause of this block, and you're definitely not going to be equipped enough to remove it by yourself. You need to give yourself permission to be supported. So personally, there's a lot of hacks out there. There's a lot of tricks that you can apply. But if you want to see real, true, lasting transformation, it requires a much deeper exploration.
I love it. And so, what I'm hearing from that as well is, first of all, we need to create awareness of this block that is existing in our lives, accepting that, because if we don't accept it, we try to deny its reality, we're not going to be able to change, and taking responsibility for that. Like you mentioned, everything in our life is a manifestation of the actions, the decisions, the thoughts, all these choices that we made compounded over time. So if we are deflecting, blaming other people, not taking responsibility for our own life, our own actions, that's there's a general theme of that in the world we live in today, where we blame the president, we blame the government, we blame, the neighbor, we blame other people. And that's, that can feel good on our ego to say, oh, well, I can't be doing anything wrong. But if we can accept, like, hey, maybe my life is actually a reflection of all the choices I made, and I'm actually in the driver's seat, rather than being, oh, somebody else is driving the car and they're not doing a good job. What if you say, hey, actually, I'm going to take the wheel back, and yeah, I may make some wrong turns, but that's part of the process. And I think that responsibility piece and that acceptance is a huge part of it. And then you mentioned, seeking support, because at the end of the day, if you are where you're at and you've been where you're at and you're not happy where you're at, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So I think this is where working with a coach, finding a book, finding a good podcast, finding a YouTube channel, somewhere that you can get outside support to give you a different perspective. So I think it's very easy when we grow up. Let's say for me, if I grew up in the Boston area, I never went to Asia, I never lived in LA, I never went to these different places, I would only know this little bubble that I grew up in. And that can be very difficult to change our mindset and change our beliefs if we don't have an outside perspective. So I think it's really important, like you said, to seek support when we need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Right.
The less you know, the more content you are. But if you are someone that has explored and has an interest in growing and in gaining more information, then you can't go halfway and expect all the results, right? We need to really go deep. And no man is an island. If that was the case, then we wouldn't need each other. Money isn't an island. Love isn't an island, which is where community and support really does come in. So 100%, it's not your fault. Your experiences, your upbringing, where you were born, how you were raised, that is simply a fact, right? But it is your responsibility. If you're over the age of 18, it is your responsibility, and it is within your power to change and transform that. So if you are uncomfortable with the results that you've got in your life, or the place that you're at in your life, it's so empowering to take responsibility, because if I'm the problem, then I'm the solution.
Yes.
If everybody else is the problem, there's too many variables, and it requires too many things around me to change in order for things to change for me. So for me, it's so empowering and liberating, a little bit terrifying to take responsibility. But I just want to bring our attention to what the word responsibility means, because it sounds like a heavy word and people avoid it. Responsibility, your ability to respond. If you haven't been responding in a way that supports your growth, in a way that supports your evolution, then we need to review that. We need to make you more able to respond in a better way.
I love it. It's being able to respond rather than react.
Exactly.
I think it's very easy to get caught up on reactions, get caught up on that emotional instinct to respond. Somebody says something to you, a lot of times people react. They don't respond by pausing and saying, what's the best way to respond? We just react. And a lot of the times when we're reacting, we're not making the optimal decisions for our life. And I think that's a really important, skill to harness, is to be responsive, being responsible, building up your responsibility muscle. And that's going to take some time. And one thing I really like that you said there was, you can't go halfway and expect full results. And the image that was popping up into my head is somebody who, let's just say, is trying to lose weight, as an example. If you say, hey, I want to lose 50 pounds in the next 6 months, okay, that's a good challenge ahead of you. But if you're just walking 10 minutes a day, not changing anything else, yeah, you're making some steps forward. That's great. You're making progress. But if you really want to meet that goal, you need to go all in. You can't just go partially in, partially out. We need to really recognize that, hey, if you want a massive change, it's going to require a massive action, and also some time to stop and do nothing, because a lot of times we get so caught up on our head, we get so caught up in this hamster wheel. It's this fine balance, and that balance is going to be different for everybody. That balance is going to take time. And another one of my favorite quotes is, no man is an island. That's love that quote. So how can we now surround ourselves with people that are going to support us in this transformation? I know you do group coaching with women. I think that is a very powerful group. I've spoken for your group, with your group, and that was a very powerful group of women. And you can see, oh, this person's doing that. Oh, I think I want to do some of that too. Oh, they're doing that. I'm not really a fan of that. That doesn't really work for me. So I'm going to do it this way instead. But we can bounce ideas off each other. And that allows us to recognize, like, hey, this person's doing that. Like we were saying earlier, almost gives them permission to start doing it for themselves. So a lot of powerful takeaways going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to kind of circle back to what you were saying about reactive living. One of the things that I actually really encourage my clients to take a look at is their default reactions, right? Because our triggers are our teachers. So when you start taking responsibility, one of the first things that you need to start looking at and becoming aware of and witnessing is, what is my default setting? How am I automatically reacting when people are talking about, on today's topic, money, for example, when people are talking about abundance and wealth, right? Do I have like a softening, an opening, a warming feeling, or do I feel panic stricken? Do I automatically go into my survival coping traits like freeze, fight, flight, fawn, which is the opposite of being receptive to it? That is you literally shutting down to receiving it.
Absolutely. And, that kind of stems from, good segue into the topic of the scarcity mindset, because I think a lot of people have been raised in this mindset of scarcity. And again, it's not their fault, it's how they're raised, but it is their responsibility to take action to change if they want to change. Some people love to be in that, because those emotions can be addicting. It can be addicting to feel crappy all the time, to have the poor me syndrome, because you get attention. Because there's some pros to that as well. You get some attention when the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So in that sense, I know a lot of people, myself included, a lot of my friends growing up have been raised with this scarcity mindset of, there's not enough to go around, don't spend extravagantly. So what do you recommend for people to shift out of the scarcity mindset, which can be a default for people? Because I know there's a lot of times we do all this great work, we work on ourselves, and something happens and boom, we're back to our default scarcity mindset. So how can we change the default mindset from one of scarcity to one of possibility and abundance?
Thank you for that question. I mean, one of the things that I definitely want to bring attention to is, of course, the upper limit, which we will receive. We all have a thermometer. We all have a financial thermometer, like what we feel comfortable with. And that has very much to do with society, and that has very much to do with our upbringing and our community, et cetera, et cetera. So when you are challenging that collective, shall we say, wound that, oh, people that look like me and come from my background, that's all that they can ever hope for, like that sort of income and that sort of house and that sort of lifestyle. But when you have a soul calling for more, And I do believe like everyone has a soul calling for more, because that is life force expressing itself through us, and life is continual growth. Then that's where we need to look at, where are we clashing unconsciously with our automatic default programming, with our conscious desire for more, and also our soul calling for more. Because if there's like a disconnect within me, then energetically, I will never be able to stand behind me being a millionaire, right? Because there's a kind of like divorce or separation happening within me. And if I am sabotaging myself subconsciously, of course, no one ever does that consciously, then I'm never going to get to the point where, you know, I want to get, because I have, you know, my worst enemy living within the headquarters of what we're trying to create here. So yeah, there's a big kind of collective wound that needs to be addressed. And also, I kind of want to talk about the difference between maybe the poor and the wealthy in a way that might feel uncomfortable, but I really invite everyone to keep an open mind and an open heart and listen to the concept of what I'm trying to share. So wealthy people are actually comfortable with going without. Wealthy people know about investment, therefore they will make decisions that they will see a return on tomorrow, right? And they're happy with that because they have like a longer term vision or plan. Whereas poor people are actually quite greedy. They want everything now, right? They've been raised on fast food, so they just want to get whatever's available right here, right now, gobble it down, but then they haven't planned for tomorrow. And that continues this perpetual cycle from generation to generation, living day by day, week by week, month by month. And that has a lot to do with, of course, the paradigm, the way that the world has been designed and organized to make us believe that we need money. So therefore, we work for money. Our whole life is sacrificed for money. Our dreams, our desires are even sacrificed for money, when really money is just a construct. Money is just a currency that was actually created to serve and support us. We don't need money. Money needs us. But because of this distorted paradigm, we believe that we need money, and therefore the people with the most money are the masters, when really we are all the masters of money. Money is an unbiased energy, a resource that is available to everyone. Really, it is available to everyone. It just has a lot to do with your receptivity of it, your relationship towards it, and your relationship with it.
Absolutely. And I know that there's a lot of, kind of those dogmas out there, those ideas of money's the root of all evil. Rich people are evil. All these little things that, maybe our parents said because they weren't very poor. And again, coming back to projecting our challenges toward other people instead of taking responsibility and saying, hey, I'm not where I want to be financially. What can I do about it? But instead saying, hey, it's their fault. The rich are bad. Money's bad. But you mentioned money is, to me, money's neutral. It's not good or bad. It's just there. And it's a tool that we can use to perpetuate our life for good or for bad. If you and I have $100 and you go to buy $100 worth of books and I go to a bar, well, in the next year, who's going to get a better ROI on their spending? Probably you.
Exactly. And I love that you brought up ROI. So I also talk about the EROI, EROI, the energetic return on an investment. And the saying that we all seem to know and we all seem to be familiar with, that money is the root of all evil. Actually, in the good book, it says the pursuit of money is the root of all evil. But the way that we've been designed and brainwashed to work for money, that in itself is the root of evil, right? Because we do believe and we do place money at a higher value than us and our own lives. So it's the pursuit of money that is the root of all evil. Whereas if I allow money to be my servant, If I'm a good person, money makes me more of who I am. That means that I can be a better person, that I can do more, I can be more generous, I can support the causes and the people that I love. So like you said, money is neutral. Money is really a magnifier and an amplifier. If you're a shitty person, it's going to make you, a shittier person. If you're a good person, it's going to make you an even better person.
Definitely. And I think it's important to recognize, that comes down to the individual. And it's not, again, the money is the neutral part. It's the person who has developed the money. I think that's where we see a lot of these people that win the lottery, they go bankrupt a year later because they haven't developed themselves personally. They still have that scarcity mindset of, oh, I have this, I have to spend it. There's none of that long-term thing. Obviously, that's a generalization. There's plenty of people that win the lottery and do a great job with their money. But oftentimes we see even, sometimes sports players who make a ton of money and then they get an injury and they made $10 million in 3 years. And then they're, working at McDonald's or somewhere a year after because they didn't know how to spend it properly. And a lot of that can come from getting support. If you're making $10 million a year and before you're making $20,000 a year, you may want to get some support, ask for some help on that, because that's a different mindset. That's a different ball game. But that can be a challenge for a lot of people, asking for help. So what are some tools that you recommend people utilize to help shift one out of that scarcity mindset, break down those money? I know this is a loaded question. Break down the money blocks and just overall move more towards a lifestyle and a life that is creating and attracting abundance over scarcity.
It is a loaded question, but I kind of want to break it down into two parts, right? So it's your money IQ and your money EQ. If you want more wealth and financial flow and financial abundance in your life, because obviously being more affluent means that you can be more influential as well. Then you need to have a look at your background, right? Your money IQ. So money IQ has to do with your knowledge, the information that has been available to you, money management, investments, etc., etc. If you don't know, you're not meant to know. We're not born knowing these things, right? These are things that we learn. These are skills that we learn. It requires education. And then money EQ is your emotional relationship towards money, your belief system around money, and of course around value, what you believe yourself to be worthy of, what you believe yourself to be capable of. On a soul level, everyone knows that they're capable of more, which is why we all dream about being wealthy, which is why we all dream about, buying whatever we want and going wherever we want, because on a soul level, we all know that that's what our soul is capable of. Now, removing, of course, that aspect, what is your nervous system response when we talk about money? And what have your behaviors and actions around dealing with money being? Because that'll show me kind of like a blueprint of, like you said, what your future is, because your future is based on your thoughts, your behaviors, your actions, your decisions, and of course compounded over a period of time will give you certain results or not give you those results. If you want to change those results, then come back to the basics. First, look at your relationship with money. If you don't have a good relationship with money, and I think a lot of people on like a conscious, rational level are like, no, I love money, I want to have money in my life. Okay, but do you have that flow? Are you able to sustain that kind of flow in your life? Or do you have kind of like periods of feast and famine? Do you have a history of splurging, or do you have a history of like over saving, which comes from the scarcity, like hoarding money, okay, for like a rainy day or whatever? So that again tells me quite a lot about your relationship towards this, this resource, this tool. Money IQ, anyone can learn, anyone can apply. However, it's their money EQ which is going to affect their ability to raise their money IQ.
I love it. So what was there a moment for you that things started to click? Like was there a distinct moment, a book you read, a podcast you listened to, an experience you had that all of a sudden you were like, boom, I'm making a change? Was there a specific moment you can remember, or was it more an like kind of that slow and steady up and down, having some highs, having some lows, kind of that roller coaster? What was your experience from shifting your mindset?
Absolutely. I mean, my personal development journey started in 2016 when I had a massive burnout and got divorced, lost my business, had to file for bankruptcy. So I really lost everything, money and love and health, the three pillars really of a good life, if you will, or a balanced life. I lost them all at the same time, and I really did a lot of work on myself, but with a lot of emphasis on, of course, my mindset and my relationship with myself, and therefore, as like a ripple effect, as a byproduct that kind of impacted my relationship with other people, my relationship with my business, and the way that I run my business, etc., etc. But every level reveals a new devil. So when we're talking specifically about finances and about money, I found that every time that I was expanding myself and I was investing more, my nervous system would kind of like, my nervous system would start to like break down and be like, no, no, this isn't safe. This isn't familiar to us. Every time that I received more money, again, something would happen to set me into this like panic mode of, I don't know, of being afraid of losing, being afraid of failing, even though I've proven to myself time and time again that I don't have a problem making money, right? I've never had a problem making money. I've started from zero every single time. I've set up 3 different businesses. I educated myself. So I've never had a problem finding the money, but the sustaining of it, the sustaining of that flow. And that had a lot to do with my nervous system response. Like my body was just not designed to, I don't want to say it wasn't designed, but it was programmed. My body was programmed to kind of like want to shrink and want to stay safe and want to stay irresponsible and stay in a place that was familiar. So I want to say like my biggest kind of like turning points, or my biggest opportunities to expand myself again and again and again, definitely had to do with, as my income was rising, becoming the version of me that is comfortable and familiarizing having more, and making decisions that I've never had to make before, and making investments like I've never had to make before. So really grounding deep into receiving support, educating myself, and then of course supporting my physical body in feeling safe in this growth, in feeling safe in this expansion, because of course with more money comes more responsibility. And I signed up for this. I signed up to be wealthy as fuck. So that means that I'm going to have to be responsible as fuck as well to support that growth. And I mean, there's no one book. I work with coaches all the time. I invest in myself all the time. It's not like I learned how to breathe once and I never need to breathe again. And I want people to understand that. And you know that as well, with health and wellness, it's an ongoing project. It's not something you do once and then that's it, right? But the more you do it, the more it becomes your identity. It replaces those old versions of you, and you start to reprogram yourself on a cellular level so that it doesn't require the willpower anymore. That's your new default setting.
I love it. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned with the program that we have in our nervous system, and how we can often kind of fall back to where is comfortable. And I'm about to, probably by the time this podcast is released, it'll be be 3 years that I've been in business with Whole Health Connections. And so every so often I'll have a month where I jump up way more than I made on my average month. And then the next month, I'll typically dip back down to the average. And a lot of that, I took me some times of seeing this pattern that I was basically self-sabotaging myself to get back to where I was comfortable. And that happened probably 4 to 6 months ago. I had the best month of my business in my 3 years. And then all of a sudden, dip back down to the average. And then once that happened, that was like the third or fourth time over the past 3 years this has happened. But this time I became aware of it. And I recognized, hold on, there's something going on here, that every time I make a big jump, I stop doing the things that got me there to fall into this place of comfort. And another thing I like that you mentioned is about, with health and wellness, is that it's not something you do once. It's something that has to be done consistently. And just like any skill, any lifestyle, if you say you want to live a wealthy lifestyle or a healthy lifestyle, it's not like, hey, I'm going to make a bunch of money and then do nothing for the rest of my life. Or, hey, I'm going to go run every day and lift weights every day for 2 months, get the best shape of my life, and then never do it again. It's the daily actions that we take. And I think a lot of times it's some things that you, like you say, subconsciously, where you might not even be aware of. Are you watching the news all the time? So you're watching the news all the time, you're probably going to be programming your brain to be focusing on the negatives, looking at the worst case scenario, further going to that scarcity. So I think it's important to recognize that all these little actions that we do consistently will compound over time. So if somebody's listening to this and saying, hey, I've been reading books, hey, I've been taking care of myself, and I'm not seeing results. Well, if you've been doing it for 2 weeks or 2 months or even 2 years, you still may not be seeing the results, because that takes time. And we all have a different starting point. For instance, let's say, friend A has been a business owner for 10 years, and now he's starting a new venture. And I'm starting that same new venture, but don't have any business experience. He's probably going to have a smaller learning curve than I have based on past experience. So rather than comparing ourselves to other people, recognize, coming back to awareness, like we talked about earlier, and responsibility. Hey, I have responsibility to work on these skills, and that may take some time. I have the responsibility to be consistent with these skills. And you said this earlier as well, of the idea of looking at the long term. Hey, I can get caught up in instant gratification, like we're often conditioned with social media and all these quick fixes. But if I want a sustained, healthy, and wealthy lifestyle, there may be some sacrifices in the short term in order to bring myself to that sustainable place a few years from now. And as I said, I'm just about done with year 3 of my business. About 10 years of this whole figuring out life thing of personal development and health. But recognizing 3 years in the grand scheme of things is not that long. And it feels like it's been my life forever that I've been doing this business. But I really take the macro view. It may take me 2 more years to get that point. It's like, boom, I'm at that place now where I get it. And there's always going to be more to learn, but kind of that next tier will be reached. And that's just going to take time. It's going to take consistent action. And it's going to take self-awareness and patience.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'd like to kind of just offer a little reframe there. You used the word sacrifice. I want to reframe that to investment.
I love that. Thank you.
It's an investment into the future, right? I'm future proofing myself, my business, my health, my wealth, whatever, right? So it's an investment which, yes, I can't cash in right now. There's 2 types of sort of investments that we make in any area. And these were like described to me as the harvests, which I love. There's obviously the harvest which we can reap every year. For example, beans and lentils, fruits and veg. Within a year, not fruits and veg, but some veg. We can reap those sort of within a season. So those are the short-term investments. And then there's like longer-term investments, like planting an apple orchard, which I'm not going to see apples for many, many years, but I will have apples for generations to come. And that is what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about wealth consciousness, I'm not talking about getting rich. It's a totally different mindset to making money. We're talking about future proofing, your ability to continuously generate, and then also to pass that on to future generations. And even when we're looking at like rewiring our physical DNA, by me taking responsibility to rewire my DNA, I'm then sharing with my children, my offsprings, and my offspring's offsprings the best possible DNA code. It's exactly the same thing. Somewhere, someone needs to take responsibility to break a cycle so that we can activate more abundant codes within our body, within our energetic fields, and within our lifestyle, so that is the new DNA code that we can pass on for generations to come. So that's the long-term harvest, and you can definitely see that with countries as well that have like a long-term goal. Like China has like a 100-year plan, don't they? And you can see how over 100 years how China has grown and dominated. And you can see how maybe the Western world, where it's a little bit more kind of like a get-rich plan, capitalism, it's their economy kind of like jumps up and down. There's this whole kind of like roller coaster of inflation and economy crashes, etc., etc. Whereas China, because it's had a long-term plan, a 100-year plan, they're thinking about future generations. They've had a totally different growth experience, which we're now becoming very, very aware of.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely want to say I would not want to live in China with a communist regime, but I see your point that it's a little bit.
No, I'm not. Yeah, definitely not saying that that's paradise, but you can see how the future planning and future proofing pays off for generations.
For sure.
I'm not talking about politics at all.
Right. Definitely. Well, you piqued my interest when you mentioned about planting trees and veggies and all that, because that's an aspect. Obviously, I talk a lot about gardening for anybody that follows me, and talk about the benefits of growing your own food. And for me, I often recommend gardening for people, not so much just to grow your own food and to save money and all these physical benefits, but for the spiritual aspect, the personal development that comes along with this, for the exact reasons that you said. If I plant a carrot seed today, I'm not going to be able to harvest that carrot for at least a few months. And that's a pretty short-term, investment. But again, compared to the world of digital gratification, if you post a photo, you get some likes, you get some comments within minutes or hours. Sometimes a few months can be a long time to wait for people. So it teaches patience. It also teaches consistency. I have to go out there every single day. It doesn't rain to water the garden. It also teaches persistence. I had a lot of like gophers and woodchucks and bunnies eating my stuff first. So I was like, all right, what am I going to do? So I built up the wall. I put a fence around it. I made actions to protect that, and that took persistence. I could have said, oh, well, they're just going to eat it. I'm just going to give up. So I think that we can utilize, and I think sports are another great one that people can use that as a spiritual personal development experience. So I always recommend to people, as you're going about this journey of personal development, I really want to challenge people to find something that they love to do and use that as part of their journey. If you love to play sports, cool. How can you get better at your sport? That's going to teach you patience, persistence, consistency, all these attributes that are going to help with your wealth, because you're developing those skills. So for me, I like to teach that with gardening, because you're getting your outside, you're getting your hands dirty, you're breathing fresh air, all these other benefits we can go into. But beyond all that, it's teaching these core principles to live an abundant life. And I think that is really important, to develop those skills, those techniques anywhere that we can.
Exactly. And you're so right. I mean, it's kind of like the 1,000 hours of mastery, isn't it? If you want to become a master at something, you need to commit 1,000 hours. Is it 10,000 hours? 10,000 hours. There you go, right? I mean, that shows consistency, that shows dedication, that shows commitment. And if you can commit to something that you actually have an interest in, to something that you want to enjoy, or that you've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to learn how to sing or play the piano, or I've always wanted to learn how to, I don't know, I've always wanted to run a marathon, something that you've always wanted to do. If you can choose just one thing that you are going to promise to yourself, that you are going to commit to, that you're going to dedicate and invest time, energy, money, love into this thing, what that does on a subconscious level is it starts to give you brownie points, and it starts to build self-trust. Because if I have a history of saying, oh, I'm going to do that on Monday, I'm going to start my diet on Monday, I'm going to start running on Monday, I'm going to start doing, and I do, but then I drop off, like after 3 days or something happened or it rained or whatever, I wasn't in the mood, then what that does on a subconscious level is your subconscious mind ticks as a failure. And the more of those failures you have, the less trustworthy you are to yourself. And if you don't trust yourself, it's going to be very hard for you to support yourself when the going gets tough. And the toughness is going to come because there's going to be growing pains. But if you can commit to something that you actually enjoy on a spiritual level, on a physical level, on a creative level, and you can consistently show up for yourself in that skill development, what you're doing is you're showing and you're building a nervous system that supports growth, that supports expansion, that supports trust. And the more I trust myself, the easier it is for me to support myself, the easier it is for me to allow myself to be supported, right? Because that's part of the journey. Most of the times, and I found this to be the case, and I'm sure you have as well, Rob, when someone has reached out to you and they want your help or your support in something, and then you offer it to them, or you think, we're a good fit, I would love to work with you, I would love to help you to build your business, or I'd love to help you to raise your wealth consciousness, I'd love to help you to heal yourself, heal your body and soul on every level. And then, you've asked them for their investments of time, energy, money, love, and then the objections come up. Oh, I don't know if I have the time, or I don't know if I have the money. I don't have the money to work with you. All those objections are essentially what that's showing me is lack of self-trust. I don't trust myself that I'm going to show up for myself, that I'm going to do the work, right? Everybody seems to be happy to give their money to someone that promises to do it for you, but that's not how you develop the skill, and that's not how you learn. And that's not how you become that version of you that can sustainably continue to create and generate for yourself.
And what I'm hearing from that is stacking small wins, is that it's not always about, we hear about these overnight successes and we think, oh, well, they just made this one book and now they're rich, they're the best-selling author. But it's like, well, what about the 6 other books they made that never made it to the publishers? What about all the other challenges they had in the small wins they stacked? Oh, maybe someone bought 1,000 books of the first one. Oh, the next one they bought 2,000 copies of the next book you wrote. So I think small wins is a big piece, and stacking the small wins, like you said, kind of rebranding our mindset to say, hey, oh, wait, I can accomplish that. Oh, that's not that big a deal, but hey, that's a win. And recognizing that and giving ourselves permission to celebrate those small wins. Because I think oftentimes I fall into the category of almost being overly humble to the fact like, oh, I'm not going to celebrate that. That's not that big a deal. I'm kind of dismissing my victories as not wanting to come off as cocky or, arrogant or whatever the term is in there. But one of my mentors, when I, had a decent achievement in my business, I was like, oh, how do I get to the next level? Asking these questions about like next. And he's like, well, did you celebrate getting to this level? Have you expressed your gratitude for getting to where you are now? Of course, at that point, my answer was no, I haven't. So he's like, well, I'm not going to tell you what's next until you actually solidified the victory that you've gotten to get to this point. And that was a really big conversation. I remember exactly where I was having that conversation, and that was really impactful. So now I do my best, and the tool that I use for that is journaling. So I'm not going out on social media and say, hey, look what I did, I accomplished this, because that still doesn't feel quite true to me, which is fine, I think, for people to do that by all means. But for me, when I write it down in my journal, that at least allows me on a personal level to acknowledge that victory, to express gratitude for that victory, and just note that victory. So it's, again, rebranding, recoding our mind to say, hey, that's a win. Oh, the next day, oh, that's a little win. I think that's a practice like gratitude, like journaling, can be very beneficial to help us to reprogram our mind, to look for the good things, to look for the victories, and ultimately just change our entire system of operation.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for celebrating. In fact, inside the container of my groups, Monday is called Miracle Monday. Every Monday, we're celebrating our miracles, big or small. And I teach them the ABC, always be celebrating.
Love that.
So you need to celebrate, because what happens is, you know, as humans, we adjust really, really quickly. And then it's like, okay, I made, you know, that goal. So what's the next goal? What's the next thing? And that is, actually, I wanted to mention this book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. He talks about the upper limit, and that is very common of the upper limit. Like once I've reached a certain level, I will find something to distract myself, to either pull me back down or to suddenly set the bar higher. So it's never enough, right? And this insatiable kind of mentality is what keeps us from being really present and grounded in just how far we've come and just how much we've grown. So I know that you're a very, very humble and private person, but I'm like, I really, really want to lead by example. So and this was uncomfortable for me in the beginning, like openly celebrating, because I had that sort of belief, or I had that discomfort around someone else's confidence. But the more I ground into sort of self-love and self-appreciation, me celebrating my wins and goals, if they can inspire one person and show them that this is possible for you as well, you know, I'm not smarter, I'm not anything more than you, then that is what my job is done. And yeah, I know that I'm probably going to trigger 10 other people, but triggers are our teachers. And if someone has the self-awareness to take responsibility for those triggers and really read the feedback, then they can grow through those triggers and through those default responses. But I'm here to show up for that one person that needs to see what's possible for them. And I always tell my clients as well, look for the one, look for evidence that one other person has achieved what you want to achieve. Because if you've never achieved it, it's going to be very hard for you to imagine yourself as that version of you if you don't know anyone that has achieved it. Like I didn't know anyone in my immediate family that, you know, had a successful, thriving business. I didn't know anyone in my immediate family that was a millionaire. So all I need to do is look for evidence of one. Where I can find evidence of one, there is evidence of many. And then my goal is to become one of the many. So that is kind of the numbers game that I like to play with myself and my clients when we're talking about raising ourselves to another level. If it's not around you, then look for it externally so that you can anchor yourself to what is possible for you.
I love that. Well, you've just inspired me to now celebrate my victories a little bit more publicly. So
ABC, brother, always be celebrating, and you should, because you're a mentor, you're a guide. And one of the ways that you can guide and mentor people is to lead by example, is to show them, I did the fucking work. Here are my carrots, right? Like show them and celebrate your wins with people. And that includes financial. I know many people are like, don't talk about your finances. Maybe you don't want to be specific. You don't need to be specific. But if you've achieved something for yourself, then you need to be celebrating that. And you need to not just journal on it, don't just write about it, like go out there and buy yourself a gift that you've always wanted, or go on a trip, do something memorable that's going to really like really solidify that win, that goal.
I love that. Well, definitely. I mean, you got my gears turning now, and I'm excited to implement this. And I think it's exciting because, like you said, I definitely, and I said myself, is, you know, I tend to hold these things more to the private side to not come off as arrogant or, you know, I don't know what the right word is, you know, ego. I think it just comes down to I don't look like an egomaniac, but that's just a belief that I've adapted as well. So this has been a good
I would
session for
explore
me.
that if I were you. I would explore that if I were you, right? Because there's obviously an opportunity there to redefine what confidence is and what celebration is and what ego is. Ego is not a bad thing. It's our perception. And that judgment that you have of that type of celebration shows me that that's a judgment that you carry for yourself as well.
You're right.
That is something I would love to explore with you if you were ever open to it.
Definitely. Well, Anastasia, this has been phenomenal. Not only just the big takeaway and the big realization you just gave me right here, but the whole conversation as a whole. So you have so much more value and information and experience and wisdom to share with people. What is the best way for somebody to learn more about the work you do, get involved with what you do, and just follow along with your journey?
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to share this with your audience, Rob. So I am actually launching a new program, which I'm so freaking excited about. It's called the Midas Manifesting Mastery, and it really is about mastering your ability to manifest all your dreams and your goals and your desires. And of course, raising your wealth consciousness. That's a very big common theme in the work that I do, sort of like raising your consciousness. And now we're looking at raising your wealth consciousness. I would like to invite anyone that is curious, or anyone, this is for men and women and everyone in between. There is no gender bias in this beautiful sacred space. Anyone that would like to experience a little bit more about what I do and what I'm talking about, and how raising your wealth consciousness can help you to become more abundant in every area of your life, as well as finances. I've got a free 5-day program, which is called Spiritual and Wealthy as Fuck. And that is where I share a little bit more about the importance of the spiritually enlightened becoming wealthy and influential as well. If you are spiritually enlightened and you are someone who has been called to do more good and be more in this world, then we need to raise those people into the top 2% of the world, because that's where we're talking about real influence. That's where we're talking about real freaking impact. Of course, impact has to begin with you. You need to first create that impact for yourself, so that when you are serving others and when you are serving the world, it's from a place of overflow. So that is something I'm super passionate about sharing with everybody. You can find that, and I'm sure that Rob will share the link in the show notes, but you can find that at the bit.ly, so bit.ly/spiritual with a capital S, wealthy with a capital W, AF, capital AF. So Rob will share that link with you. Otherwise, you can always connect with me on Instagram, where I'm really, really active, and you can find out more about the work that I do in that space as well.
Awesome. And for anybody listening, is it just Anastasia Gerali? Is that your Instagram?
Yes, Anastasia Gerali with a G, Gerali.
Perfect. And again, I will put those links in the description box here. Well, Anastasia, thank you so much for sharing everything you did today. Thank you for opening my eyes up to a little blockage I have in my brain as well. So I'm excited to sit down after this, and I got to actually go outside and just kind of sit with that for a few minutes. But want to appreciate you once again for the work you're doing. It's important work, and we need more people talking about the topics you discuss and just leading the way. Because like you said, if we want to see real change in this world, we want to be leading that ship. We want to be leading that charge. And in order to do that, we have to develop ourselves, and we need to have the resources available to make change. So once again, Anastasia, thank you for being you. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, brother. I appreciate you too.
Everybody listening, have the best day ever. Talk to you soon. My friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. I appreciate the support as always. And, it'd really mean the world to me if you could check out what Anastasia's up to. Give both of our pages a follow on Instagram is a great way to find us, and I will put those links in the description box as well. And, a great way to support the podcast so that we can keep it going is by supporting our sponsors. So if you haven't already checked out the superfoods and tools that I utilize on a very regular basis, just about a daily basis for many of them, you can check out that on my website. You go to the superfoods and tools, check out all the different products there from Purium, which is my all-time favorite. That's got the baseline nutrition you're going to need. Starting with the Daily Core 4 is a great option. You get the green juice, super aminos, biomedic for gut support and detoxifying glyphosate. If you're not familiar with the glyphosate and what issues that's causing, you can check out my podcast I did on, I believe it's called What's the Deal with Glyphosate. You can check that one out. And it also comes with the Apothecary, which is the dream juice, great for inflammation, great for antioxidants, and natural melatonin relief. And then if you really want to step to the next level, the Ultimate Lifestyle Transformation is a 30-day transformational pack, which is going to help you detox, nourish, and repair your body at a cellular level. So you can check those out. You can also download my free ebooks. The most recent one is called Yes, You Can Grow Your Own Food. Check out the online courses. Now, the Foundations of Wellness is live, which I did with my friend Zavi Donabedium, another Czech practitioner, also very well versed in functional medicine. A lot of great value in there, and we're super excited for you guys to check that out. And really, the intention with that program is to make that be the foundational course for wellness. All of our tens of thousands of dollars combined education put into one program for less than $500 is a pretty darn good deal. We're going to keep getting that better, keep honing our craft, and keep sharing the knowledge with you. And the Houseplant Basic course is now live, and all that is on the website. You go to the Learn and Grow tab, you'll see all those courses on there, the free ebooks, the articles I've written for my blog, the courses, and much more. So any support that you can provide to us, I know that the money you spend supporting the channel will be very well spent on my piece, putting it back in the business, bringing more guests on for you, and I know that you will get an incredible ROI on any products you buy, any courses you buy, and as always, looking forward to hearing how you enjoy them, how you enjoy this episode. Have the best day ever, and we'll talk to you soon.